Picture a rainy night in northern France in 1944. A handful of American soldiers pull canvas off a strange bundle, hook up an air hose, and in minutes, a full-sized tank appears where there was only mud. Down the road, a truck with 500-pound loudspeakers starts blaring the clatter of engines and shouted orders. 15 miles away, German scouts think a real armored column is forming. It isn't. It's art, sound, and radio tricks, run by a secret U.S. Army unit nicknamed the Ghost Army. Their job: pretend to be whole divisions and lure the enemy away from real American troops. The 23rd Headquarters Special Troops, the core of the Ghost Army, had about 1,100 men and carried out more than 20 battlefield deceptions from Normandy to the Rhine. Let's walk through how this unit came to be, what they actually did, the myths to ignore, the truths you can verify, and the people who faked it so well that it saved lives. Birth of a Phantom. Who were they, how they formed, and the tools of the trade? The Ghost Army originated as a highly specific idea: to create a mobile deception unit that could appear and sound like a much larger force and move quickly enough to be wherever Allied commanders needed a distraction. The U.S. Army activated the 23rd Headquarters Special Troops on January 20, 1944, at Camp Forest, Tennessee. It had an authorized strength of 82 officers and 1,023 men under Colonel Harry L. Reeder. Training and assembly also drew on facilities at Camp Pine, New York, now Fort Drum. The 23rd sailed to Britain in May 1944 and entered action soon after D-Day. What made the 23rd different was its mix of artists, designers, radio operators, and audio engineers. Many soldiers were recruited from art schools and advertising studios. Some later became famous: fashion designer Bill Bless and painter Ellsworth Kelly among them. The Army picked them because they could build a picture, in a field, on a radio net, or through sound, that enemy scouts would believe. The 23rd combined three deception arms. First was visual deception, largely run by the 603rd Camouflage Engineers. Inflatable tanks, trucks, artillery, and even airplanes. Painted, scuffed, and staged with props like fake laundry lines and dummy fuel dumps. Second was sonic deception, handled by the 3133rd Signal Service Company Special. Wire-recorded mixes of tanks, trucks, and bridge building blasted from giant speakers on half-tracks, audible up to 15 miles in good conditions. Third was radio deception by the Signal Company Special, carefully scripted spoof traffic that mimicked the Morse fist, the sending style of real units operators, so enemy eavesdroppers would be fooled. Yes, they practiced copying operators' styles. To be convincing, the 23rd also created atmosphere. Soldiers sewed fake patches onto uniforms, painted false bumper markings on jeeps, built phony headquarters, and even played roles in towns, posing as staff officers who let slip plans in cafes where German agents might overhear. Two more facts set the stage. First, the 23rd didn't work alone. A sister unit, the 3133rd Signal Service Company Special, was formed in 1944 and used sonic deception in Italy in 1945. It numbered roughly 200 soldiers and carried out two late-war deceptions there. Second, secrecy lasted a very long time. The program stayed largely hidden until the 1996 declassification, which is why public honors came so late. So, by the time the 23rd reached France, the toolkit was ready: inflatable armor, sound trucks, spoof radio, and actors in uniform. They could simulate two divisions, about 30,000 men, on short notice, though they numbered only about 1,100. That mismatch, small team, huge effect, is core to the Ghost Army story, and it's well covered by the National World War II Museum and Modern Histories. The Roadshow: early missions, close calls, and how the tricks worked under fire. The 23rd reached Britain in May 1944 and soon sent small detachments to support D-Day operations. A team came ashore at Omaha Beach within days to set up dummy artillery that drew German fire away from real positions. It was a sign of what was coming: small groups operating dangerously close to the front, making the enemy look in the wrong direction. One of the first big field lessons came at Brest in late summer 1944. The 23rd combined visual, sonic, and radio deception to complicate German defense of the port. Inflatable long tom guns and rubber Shermans looked right from the air. Sound trucks rumbled at night to suggest units forming for attack. Spoof radio and planted atmosphere completed the picture. Veterans called Brest the biggest piece of action some of them saw. because unlike many later missions, this one unfolded in the middle of a major battle. In September 1944, during Operation Bettenberg in Luxembourg, the unit pushed the theater craft even further. Men sewed 6th Armored Division patches onto their sleeves, repainted vehicle markings, and posted fake MPs at crossroads to guide traffic that German spies might notice. One soldier even impersonated a major general, making himself visible as he toured in a jeep convoy. A handful of inflatable tanks were set forward where enemy observers could spot them. The sonic crews learned to mix soundtracks like a live show, load a marching battalion loop, blend in take maintenance, and add pontoon bridge noises if the script called for it. Those tracks were developed with assistance from Bell Labs engineers, recorded at Fort Knox, and later transferred to wire recorders for field use. Played through powerful amplifiers mounted on half-tracks, the soundscapes were engineered to mimic the movement of armored units. The objective was precise. If the deception order of battle called for an armored battalion to arrive during the night, the sound of that arrival would echo across the terrain at the appointed hour. Technical reports and historical accounts describe the original Fort Knox recordings and note that, under optimal conditions, the loudspeakers could project audible effects as far as 15 miles. Radio operators mirrored that discipline. Each fake division needed a traffic net, messages, routing, operator styles that matched what German signal units expected to hear. The fist of a Morse operator is like handwriting. The 23rd Specialists studied and imitated known fists so closely that enemy listeners accepted the traffic as genuine. Through late 1944 and early 1945, the 23rd executed more than 20 deceptions across France, Belgium, Luxembourg, and Germany. They could operate within a quarter mile of the front lines, which meant real risk. In some demonstrations, a few real tanks or guns were attached so the distant picture had a kernel of reality. The rest was canvas, rubber, and performance. The National World War II Museum summarizes this period as a traveling multimedia deception unit moving east with the Allied advance. The important point for listeners: none of this was random pranking. Every deception had an order of battle, a cover story, a map of where spies might watch, and a timeline that matched real operations. When it worked, German units redeployed toward ghosts, and real American units fought with fewer bullets flying at them. That was the mission. The big show on the Rhine, what it saved, and the recognition that finally came. The Ghost Army's largest and most famous performance was Operation Viersen in March 1945. As the U.S. Ninth Army prepared to cross the Rhine River, the 23rd staged a complete fake buildup about 10 miles south of the real crossing point. They impersonated two divisions, the 30th and the 79th, and deployed roughly 600 inflatable vehicles, complete with sound and radio traffic to match. The ruse worked. German forces shifted to face the ghosts while the Ninth Army crossed with much less resistance. How much did this kind of deception save? Honest answer? We can't measure it exactly. However, senior leaders at the time praised the effect, and modern estimates, repeated at the Congressional Gold Medal ceremony, suggest that the Ghost Army saved between 15,000 and 30,000 American lives by drawing fire and attention away from real units. The cost to the unit was real. By the war's end, 3 members had been killed and about 30 had been wounded. Small numbers compared to a standard division, but a reminder that these were combat operations, often run within rifle range of the front. Another truth, the 23rd did not fight alone. Their sister unit, the 300133rd Signal Service Company Special, formed in 1944 and ran 2 sonic deceptions in Italy in April 1945, using the same Fort Knox recordings and half-tracks. The 300133rd had about 200 soldiers, a fact preserved by the Ghost Army Legacy Project's research. So when you hear Ghost Army, remember that it refers to 2 units, one operating mainly in Northwest Europe and the other in Italy at the very end. For decades after the war, members kept quiet. Much of the program stayed under wraps until 1996, which is why their story was better known in museums and veteran circles than in school textbooks. That changed in the last few years. Congress passed the Ghost Army Congressional Gold Medal Act, Public Law 117-85, signed February 1, 2022. The medal ceremony took place on March 21, 2024 in Washington, D.C., with 3 surviving members present: Bernard Bluestein, John Christman, and Seymour Nussenbaum. In that ceremony, leaders praised a unit that used creativity to save lives. That line may sound poetic, but it is grounded in documents, war diaries, and after-action reports. At Viersen, the Ninth Army commander issued a commendation. Across more than 20 missions, frontline divisions wrote letters thanking an 1,100-man roadshow for making their job a little less lethal. The praise matters, but the core proof is simpler. When deception pulled German units toward a phantom, American soldiers at the real point of attack took fewer casualties. That is the metric the Ghost Army cared about. The legacy that lasted. The Ghost Army wasn't a sideshow, it was strategy. These soldiers didn't win the war, but they helped real units win their battles by shaping what the enemy saw, heard, and believed. They worked close to the line, often under fire, using art and engineering to project strength where there was none. And while myths reduced their mission to rubber tanks and harmless tricks, the truth is clear. This was combat deception, built on planning, risk, and the trust of the commanders who used it. That legacy lasted. The unit's work remained classified for decades, but its methods, visual deception, sonic warfare, radio spoofing, became part of the playbook for future operations. In 2022, Congress formally recognized the Ghost Army service, and in 2024, surviving veterans stood in Emancipation Hall to accept the nation's thanks. Today, when soldiers study psychological operations or information warfare, they're walking the same path those 1,100 Americans carved across Europe, quietly, creatively, and under fire. How would you like to get a deeper understanding of history, impress your friends, and predict the future more accurately based on past events? If this sounds like something you might be into, then check out the brand new Captivating History Book Club by clicking the first link in the description. To learn more interesting facts about America's involvement in this war, check out our book, World War II, A Captivating Guide from Beginning to End. It's available as an ebook, paperback, and audiobook. If you found the video captivating, please hit the like button and subscribe for more videos like this.